Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to my Blu-ray library tour. And this should be the second and last of the Kino Lorber Blu-rays. We could try to get through them here. You can see them stacked up on the arm of a chair. We start off with, excuse me, with Thunderbolt, with Fay Ray and Richard Arlen. But it's, I think it's the first sound directed by Joseph von Sternberg, 1929. At least it has some sound, at least a sound reel in it. And here is Alfred Hitchcock early sound, Murder, with Herbert Marshall and Nora Baring. And that is 1930. One of these, after I purchased it, I'm not sure if it's this one, that Kino screwed up with the aspect ratio of it. It might be Murder. I think they might have screwed up, or one of the Hitchcocks that they put out, they screwed up with the aspect ratio, sadly. But I'm not sure which one. I'll have to look that up. But that's a good early Hitchcock. This is one I like. Well, two actors on here, and the actors are perfectly fine as well. Janet Gaynor and Paulette Goddard, who I really like. And then there's Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Roland Young, and Billy Burke. Billy Burke shows up as a comedic wife, usually clueless wife in the 30s a lot. And this is 1938, and it's a Selznick International Pictures, and it is directed by Richard Wallace. And it's a bit of a comedy and misunderstandings and so forth. This is definitely a comedy with Fred McMurray. Murder, he says. Helen Walker and Marjorie Main. Marjorie Main of Ma and Pa Kettle fame, doing sort of very similar, but a little meaner, a lot meaner actually. And it's got some funny parts in it. It's interesting. Slapstick. It's very simple, but it's a fun film. Sort of an old house in the woods. With very sort of simple people. Let's put it that way. And that is directed by George Marshall. It's a fabulous film, and there's some good acting in it, all round basically, and interesting effects where there's like a twins, but they're just one actor, and they splice it all together, and it's all done, with in the at the time 1945, but it looks pretty good and it works. Here's one. Well, I do have a lot of Bob Hope films, and I do have a soft spot for Bob Hope. This is sort of one of his okay ones. There's some funny bits in it. The Paleface, with Jane Russell, and that's directed by Victor Young, I think it is. Yeah. It's 1948. See, Kino sometimes, like, they do put their dates in the right places where you can see them occasionally, but not always. This is a fabulous film. There is more dialogue in 10 minutes of this film than I bet most films that are filmed today. And that goes with His Girl Friday as well. Just rapid fire dialogue, but there's lots of dialogue in this one. Frederick March and Death Takes a Holiday. It was redone, but I don't know. I started watching it and I just couldn't do it. It didn't work. This is 1934, directed by Mitchell Leeson. Really good director. This is a very, very interesting film. Well, it says on the back here, it says one of the most unusual romances ever filmed. And that could very well be. Is this a catalog or yeah, it's a catalog rather than a booklet. It's too bad. This really needs a booklet. It is a fabulously filmed film. Filmed with the cinematography is fabulous. Trying to get the case closed here, but these cases are subject to breaking their little tabs off. Yeah, this has the little tab broken off. Yeah. This is 1948, and that is The Portrait of Jenny, with Jennifer Jones, Joseph Cotton, Ethel Barrymore, and Lillian Gish. As I say, it's 1948. It's directed, well, it's based on a novel, which I do want to read the novel, but I don't think it's available unless you buy an original copy of it. It's directed by William Dieterle. We came across him briefly with People on Sunday, a German film, 1929. I think in the Masters of Cinema and or in BFI. But this is fabulous. It's I guess you would almost say it's fantasy as well, because it's not reality. Another Billy Wilder film, a later one, The Front Page, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. I did mention His Girl Friday, which I really like, with is it Rosalind Russell? Is that right? And Cary Grant. But it was based on a play called The Front Page, and Billy Wilder redid the original of that with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in 1974. It's one of Billy Wilder's late films, but it's still interesting to watch. A nice 1930s. I guess it's horror because it is supernatural. It's The White Zombie, with Bela Lugosi, and it's directed by it's produced and directed by the Halperns, directed by Victor Halpern, and produced by Edward Halpern, and it's based on a novel which I'm going to see if I can get a hold of, by William Seabrook. And this is 1932, so it's an early one. And they went on to make a couple more zombie films. 2 more, I think it was, that are interesting as well. It's a pre-code film, The Sign of the Cross, and it's got some quite salacious things in it, and that definitely would not get by the code later. This is 1932, Cecil B. DeMille. It's got Claudette Colbert, and she takes a bath in milk. And there's other interesting bits in the with the gladiatorial games in here. There's Frederick March, Elsa Landi, Claudette Colbert, as I say, Charles Lawton. It's a fabulous film. But it's the Kino verse again. These are, I'm really happy that they're putting this stuff out, but they are sort of missing the boat on things with the extras. Their commentaries are sometimes very inept, sometimes good but inept. And this goes with we'll see a Roger Corman set of Edgar Allan Poe, and there was a few that for some reason were, I know why they were missing, because it was a Vincent Price Edgar Allan Poe, but these are Roger Corman was a strange director. He directed and produced like just schlock B pictures, and some of them are interesting to watch. The horror ones especially, but for some reason he latched on to something that was good here, and he did a whole series of Edgar Allan Poe adaptations. Not, excuse me, not always accurate to the stories, but they were very interesting. And for some reason, they couldn't get Vincent Price for this one, and they got Ray Milland for The Premature Burial, 1962. And it's American International Pictures that all of them were made with. And yeah, there's a handful of Poe films that are great. Some from the 30s. We've already, I think, saw, or have we seen those? I'm not sure. Black Cat and so forth, Bela and Boris ones. But anyway, these in the 60s were really, really good. Here's another Alfred Hitchcock one, and this actually could, I can't remember which one, as I said. So one of them has an issue with the aspect ratio. They screwed up, and I didn't notice. This might be it, actually, because it's saying it's 121. Excuse me, 1929, Blackmail. A fabulous film with Annie Andra, Sarah Allgood, and John Lundgren. And this is Annie Andra's voice is not her voice in here. She's lip syncing, and I think somebody off sort of camera is saying the words, and they're being recorded. I think that's right. It's interesting, but there's some fabulous scenes, and and like Hitchcock, this might be one of the sort of more famous ones that he's in. Actually, he's a passenger on a streetcar or a bus. If I didn't say 1929. I mentioned the silent earlier, Cat and the Canary, and the silent one. There was another one that I don't think exists anymore. It's called The Cat Creeps, and that was another early, I think, Universal adaptation of it. But I don't think that exists anymore, except a few minutes of it that wound up in another film. But this is one that I really like, and again, Paulette Goddard. I always have time for Paulette Goddard, and Bob Hope. The Cat and the Canary. It's their version of it, comedic version, but it's very good. It's very atmospheric, and that was 1939, and that was directed by Elliot Nugent, who did a lot of films too. He's a name that does crop up a lot. And then, because they were so popular doing that, they did the Ghost Breakers, a team up sort of again. Bob Hope and Paulette Goddard. Even though I guess she didn't really... they had really great chemistry together, but I guess she didn't really care for him that much, because I guess he was after her all the time, and she wouldn't sleep with him. At this time, she was... I think she was probably, she was still married, I think, to Charles Chaplin at the time, and he would come to the set. But anyway, they're just fabulous films, and I wish they did do more, because it would have been an interesting thing. This was with Richard Carlson, Paul Lucas, as always plays sort of the bad guy, generally. Anthony Quinn, early Anthony Quinn. Willie Best, and directed by George Marshall again, that we saw earlier. It's just a fun film. I've done this as I think I've done this as a book to film, because it's an interesting book, and interestingly filmed. There's good parts and bad parts to it. The House by the River by with Lewis Hayward, Lee Bowman, and Jane Wyatt, and it's directed by Fritz Lang in 1950. I really do like some of the scenes in it, and the way he juxtaposed the two sort of friends, the way their houses look, and that to sort of it gives information of just how the look of everything for their psyches, and that's really, really well done, and that's where Fritz Lang can excel in that. And it's a film noir in a sense. Yeah, it is a film noir. Did I say what year it was? 1950. There's another one, Bob Hope, but this time with Dorothy Lamour, but not the road pictures. It's My Favorite Brunette. It's a take on film noir with Lon Chaney Jr. and Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre is really good at it. He's really, really funny. This is 1947. Um, it's almost like a Maltese Falcon sort of takeoff in a sense, and Double Indemnity. It's all those sort of put together. 1947. Last one in this pile, another one. Wow, this we saw the Pale Face, and this is the sequel, Son of Pale Face. Bob Hope, Jane Russell, Trigger, and Roy Rogers. And those who know Trigger will know who Trigger is. So he got a listing on the posters as well. Let me see here. Who's directed this by? Frank Tashlin. Name that I'm not that familiar with as a director. This is 1952. It's color. It's another sort of a romp with Bob Hope doing his usual shtick. Now we're getting into most of the road pictures here that they did, which was kind of nice. Is this the last one? No, it's not. That's the last one, I think. They're not going to be in order, but I do love the road pictures with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby and Dorothy Lamour. This is Road to Singapore, 1940, directed by Victor Schlesinger. And this does not have a commentary on it. This is a good one, to Singapore. Okay, now we're going to be broken up a little bit here. He did the My Favorite Brunette, and then this is My Favorite Blonde. It's a similar type of thing. But Madeline Carroll and Gail Sondergaard and George Zucker, they're always in sort of, George Zucker is probably in every sort of low budget horror film of the 40s and into the 50s. It's like, I think it was written into his Hollywood contract that if they did a film, he had to be in it. And Gail Sondergaard is fabulous as well, as sort of like a menacing, usually housekeeper type person. So this one is directed by Sidney Landfield. It's a Paramount. A lot of these are Paramounts. Did I say the date? 1942. Okay, here we got The Road to Bali. Not a great one. But Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dorothy Lamour. It's got some funny stuff in it. Directed by Hal Walker. Some of these, like, there's a few that have commentary. Some are okay, and some are iffy. Again, like, some of them are pretty good, but not the best. I can't remember this one so much, but The Road to Bali, it's a pretty good one, but not the greatest. I like The Road to Rio, which I thought was a good one. This is 1947. It's the fifth of the 7 films they did. And it's the usual lineup: Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dorothy Lamour. And the Andrews sisters are on there. I'm just looking here. So the director, Daniel Dare. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the director, and not sure if there's a commentary on that one. This one I like. There's a few that I really, really like, and it's like The Road to Utopia I really like. And again, it's Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dorothy Lamour. And this is 1945. It's the 4th one. And that was directed by Hal Walker again. We've already seen him. Another one that's fabulous. This might be one of the best. Uh, it's the third one, actually, yeah. But 1942, The Usual Lineup, directed by David Butler, and this has I think this one has a pretty good commentary on it, if I remember right. There's a couple of them that do have good commentaries. Road to Zanzibar is the second one, and it's really good too. Usual Lineup, Una Merkel, and directed by Victor Schlesinger as well. That's 1941. This is the last one. It doesn't have Dorothy Lamour on. It was getting a little tired at this point. And I don't think, well, Joan Collins just didn't work. I don't think. It's The Road to Hong Kong. And yeah, they were getting tired at this point. This is the seventh one. What year? 1962. They were going to do another one, I think, in the 70s. They were going to do an eighth one. Well, just bear with me. Let's see who directed this. Norman Panama. They were going to do an eighth one, I think, in the 70s, and they were going to call it, because they were fairly, aged at that time. They were going to call it, I think, On the Road to something of youth or something like that, but Bing had died, so that put pay to that. Would have been interesting to see, I suppose, because if they did do it in the sense that it was going to be the last one, and knowing their mortality, that could have been kind of interesting, and but it never was to be. This is, I think, one of the best film noirs, definitely, is Scarlet Street. It's a Fritz Lang, Edward G. Robinson, one of my favorites, Joan Bennett, and Dan Duryea. And yeah, Dan Duryea, again, is like George Zucker for sort of horror type stuff, the 40s horror. Dan Duryea, it was written into his thing that he always played the bad guy in film noirs. It's like, it was just written into his contract. Scarlet Street. This is just fabulous, and Joan Bennett is actually quite alluring in it. And those who ever watched Dark Shadows in the 60s, or there's like 1,300 episodes, I think, or something like that. It became sort of a horror type thing. It started as a soap opera in the afternoon, but it became something bigger. And she was on there. It was sort of her last days. She had, well, there was issues with potential, with her career, because she possibly was having an affair with her manager, I think, and her husband at the time sort of found out, shot the manager. He was a director, but he sort of got in prison for it, and it was pretty clear that he did this. But whether she did, she was fooling around is questionable. But her career sort of really hurt by it, rather than his didn't. This is 1945, directed by. Oh, it's based on a novel, so I should look that up. Director, well, yeah, what did I say? Yeah, I know it's Fritz Lang. It's directed by Fritz Lang. Another great one, a fabulous director, sort of screwballs, and just a fabulous director and writer of screenplays as well. This is the great McGinty, Brian Donlevy, Muriel Angelis, and Akim Timiroff. It's 1940, and Preston Sturgis. It's like a bit of a And I think it was sort of, there was some aspects that he took from Huey P. Long for this, and to a certain extent. And another Edgar Allan Poe. Can't remember this one too much, and I bought this because I got it because I wanted to get sort of all the Poe stuff that I remember seeing, and I know I've seen this, but I can't remember how good it is. But I thought I'd get it. It's Vincent Price and Christopher Lee, The Oblong Box. It's a tale of living dead. I don't know how accurate it is. 1969. It's one of, is it an Amicus, or oh no, it's an American International. Um, Directed by Berkey Pathe, I think that is. It's hard to read here, but 1969. So it'll be interesting to see how that is. And there's an audio, I think, or it might be a video of Annabelle Lee, narrated by Vincent Price. So that'll be interesting as well. And the next is an interesting film for a number of reasons. It's during sort of Hollywood, they never really dealt with supernatural things like ghosts and supernatural, like horror stuff. It was always like a haunted house was usually described as, or found out to be uh, gangsters or something like that, or somebody trying to swindle the inheritance from the some old person that died, and then there was they bequeathed their wealth to somebody. There's hidden jewels, all these type of things, and that's what it turned out to be. And they pretended it to be a haunted house or comedic with Abbott Costello type stuff. And I enjoyed those. I always enjoyed those, but there were a few times that they did deal with actual supernatural subjects, and this was one of them, one of the earlier ones. And also, it's odd because Carol Lombard is in it, and she made her career basically off of comedy. And there's Randolph Scott is in here as well, and it's called Supernatural, and it's 1933. It's directed by Victor Halpern. It's a Halpern production. We saw this with the zombie ones. So yeah, they were into sort of to supernatural things. So that's why this is actually quite interesting. It's a bit before its time, I think. The commentary I remember is pretty good. This could be the film after she came back, because she was in a car accident, and you can actually see, I forget which side it's on, you can see a scar on her face, Carol Lombard. If you look closely into the films, especially with a good transfer, you can see the scar. So it's kind of interesting. Here's another team up, Bob Hope and Pollock Goddard, but not the ghosty types. It's called Nothing But the Truth. Again, it's a fabulous film. It's just a fun film, as they all are. 1941, and let me see who else is in this. Edward Arnold, Leif Erikson. Who else might be? Grant Mitchell, Willie Best. It is directed by Elliot Nugent again. 1941, if I didn't say. And this, I really like this movie. I did this as a film or book to film. It's sort of a boy's adventure type, but I really like it. And I want to read actually the other books in sort of the series, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the book, or potentially happens. And it's called Beau Jests. And it's a fabulous film. I like and the stories behind it. It's Gary Cooper, Ray Milland, Robert Preston, just fabulous cast. It also has J. Carroll Nash, Donald O'Connor, James Stevenson, Susan Hayward, and Brian Donlevy, who we saw in The Great McGinty. And this is directed by William Wellman. Um, and he was a really good director as well. And there's some interesting stories behind this where uh, Ray Milland didn't like Donlevy, Brian Donlevy at all. So there's a scene where he's supposed to stab him with a bayonet, and he actually does, and apparently really does stab him a bit. Not fatally or badly, but he does. um, so that's really good. Uh, Another one, Spiral Staircase. This one, next one. Oh, I didn't say what year that was, did I? That's 1939. And Spiral Staircase, Dorothy McGuire, George Brent, and Ethel Barrymore. It's directed by Robert Siodmak, who, again, I mentioned William Dieterle and Billy Wilder, that they all go back to the People on Sunday, the German film in 1928 or 29. And this is fabulous. Dorothy McGuire is so sweet, and she doesn't really say anything. She's mute throughout the picture. It's a bit different from the book, and the book is really good too. The book is very good, but the cinematography in here, the way that the setup of the camera and the lighting is just beautiful. It is definitely filmed noirish in so many ways. And it's got a fabulous scenes with Elsa Lanchester, who was Charles Laughton's wife, and she's just so good. And she's usually by herself, talking either to the dog or just talking to herself and drinking, and it is just marvelous. She is just so good. But yeah, this is one of my. I don't know if I would say, but it's definitely up there in top films for me that I can watch it every so often. It's so great. 1946. And one that I'm not even sure if I've ever seen. It's a bit getting back to Billy Wilder here. Um, I'm not sure if I've seen this one, but I'd have to start watching it and see. It's got Jack Lemmon and Juliet Mills. It's Avanti. And it's again a later one of Billy Wilder, 1972. And let me see here. Was it based? It was based on a play by Samuel Taylor. But there's an interview with Juliet Mills, Clive Revel. There's no commentary on this one, but it's a romantic comedy, and I'm gonna have to watch this shortly. But I'm trying to get all of Billy Wilder films, and there's a few of these directors I want to get all their films, or at least as many as I can, and then maybe get streaming and then watch them sort of chronologically through in the order that they made them, and I just really want to do that. But yeah, no, that's the end of the Kino Lorber, and yeah, 35 minutes almost. We'll go on. I think the next is Arrow Films, another new company that is hit or miss for me on items. And then we're getting near the end. I think up there somewhere is the the Arrow, and then we got, I can't remember what else, but then maybe it's just miscellaneous silence, and then those are silence there by one. I'll separate those into one video, and then there's just these ones here that are just miscellaneous labels and stuff, and including that one there. I think these two are miscellaneous ones. So we'll get to those maybe another week. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep up doing these once a day, but they're easy to do. I film it beforehand, schedule them, and then sort of forget about them. So it works. But anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. Take care, BookTube.